Did you know that a failing wool sneaker company just abandoned making shoes entirely to rent out artificial intelligence microchips? And within hours, regular people threw so much money at them that the stock price exploded by over 500%. This is not a joke. This just happened in April 2026. We are living through one of the most bizarre and dangerous financial moments in human history. Imagine the global economy is a massive, deep ocean. Right now, there are two very different types of boats sailing on this water. On one side, you have massive, heavy steel cargo ships. These ships are powered by enormous, robust engines. They are not flashy, they are not fast, but they are carrying the heavy, critical supplies that the entire world absolutely needs to survive. In our economy, these steel cargo ships represent the foundational infrastructure of artificial intelligence. We are talking about the physical data centers, the energy grids, and the massive cooling systems that make modern technology possible. But look over to the other side of the ocean. You will see a chaotic swarm of tiny, brightly painted wooden rowboats. These little boats have giant neon banners taped to their sides that just say the letters AI. A sudden, wild gust of wind has caught their sails. That wind is the blind, frantic enthusiasm of everyday retail investors. The people in these little boats are cheering and throwing their life savings overboard to make the boats go faster. They are racing full speed toward an unknown foggy horizon. They do not care that there are sharp, jagged coral reefs hidden just beneath the surface. They only care about the thrill of the race. Meanwhile, the smart captains on the big steel ships are quietly and carefully charting a safe course. Sometimes they even steer their massive ships to pick up valuable cargo that has fallen off other boats. This is the exact situation happening in the stock market today. The market has completely split in two. Let us zoom in on those big steel cargo ships first. When you hear the words artificial intelligence, you probably think of a clean, magical software program living invisibly in the sky. You might think of a smart chatbot or a computer generating a funny image. But the truth is entirely physical. The cloud is not in the sky. The cloud is located in massive windowless concrete warehouses spread across places like Virginia and Texas. These warehouses are called data centers. Inside these buildings, there are endless rows of black metal racks. And inside those racks are the graphics processing units, or GPUs. These are the physical brains, doing the actual thinking for the artificial intelligence. Before a single line of code can write a college essay for you, a massive physical process must occur. For the last 20 years, regular computer servers did not need that much power. A standard rack of computers might use about 10 to 15 kilowatts of electricity. That is roughly the same amount of power as running a few central air conditioning units for a large house. But artificial intelligence changed the laws of physics for the internet. The new microchips are absolute power monsters. A single rack of modern AI servers can easily consume over 100 kilowatts of power. Some next-generation setups demand 150 kilowatts. We are talking about a 10-fold increase in power consumption. And when computers use that much electricity, they generate a terrifying amount of heat. If you do not cool them down instantly, the metal chips will literally melt and catch on fire. The transistors on these chips are now measured in nanometers. They are only a few atoms wide. When you pack billions of atomic switches into a piece of metal, the size of a postage stamp, and run high-voltage electricity through it, the heat is explosive. This means that building an AI data center is no longer a simple software project. It is a heavy industrial engineering project. We are reaching a point where traditional air conditioning cannot cool the rooms fast enough. Engineers are now submerging the actual computers in tanks of specialized liquid just to keep them from melting. You need giant electrical substations built right next to the building. You need heavy-duty fiber, optic cables trenched deep underground and across the bottom of the oceans. Traditional copper wires simply cannot handle the massive bandwidth required to train these intelligence models. The world is physically rewiring itself. This is why the foundational infrastructure stocks are performing so well. The biggest companies in the world are in a desperate, expensive arms race to buy this computational power. They do not care about short-term economic wobbles. They believe that if they do not secure this physical hardware right now, their companies will become obsolete and die in the next 5 years. This sustained, aggressive spending is creating a bedrock of financial stability for the companies that actually build and power the data centers. Institutional investors, the people managing billions of dollars for pension Funds and endowments recognize this. They are pouring their capital into the concrete, the copper wire, the cooling pipes, and the electrical transformers. They are buying the picks and shovels of the modern gold rush. But this heavy infrastructure ocean is not entirely calm. There are constant geopolitical tremors shaking the water. For example, the global markets are currently trying to look beyond the ongoing Iran war and the tension in the Middle East. While these conflicts have not completely derailed the global economy, they expose a very dangerous fragility. The global supply chain is incredibly delicate. The raw materials needed to build those AI data centers like copper and rare earth metals are often sourced from politically unstable regions. Energy prices can spike overnight if a vital shipping lane is blocked. The institutional investors know this. They are maintaining a state of constant vigilance. They are balancing the massive, unstoppable demand for tech infrastructure against the very real threat that a war could disrupt the physical supply of energy and materials. Now, let us turn our attention away from the serious infrastructure and look back at those chaotic, brightly painted rowboats. We are witnessing the terrifying return of what economists call animal spirits. This is a term originally used by the famous economist John Maynard Keynes. It describes the emotional, irrational instincts that drive human beings to buy and sell things. When animal spirits take over, logic disappears. People stop looking at math and start buying based entirely on hype, greed, and the fear of missing out. There is no better or more absurd example of this than what just happened to a company called Allbirds. To understand how crazy this is, we need to look at the history of this brand. A few years ago, Allbirds was the absolute darling of Silicon Valley. They made simple, minimalist sneakers out of sheep wool. Tech billionaires and celebrities loved them. Leonardo DiCaprio even invested in them. At the absolute peak of their popularity, the company was valued at over $4 billion. They opened beautiful retail stores all over the world. People genuinely believed they were the future of sustainable footwear. But fashion is fickle. The shoes went out of style. Sales plummeted. The company started losing tens of millions of dollars every single quarter. They had to close almost all of their physical stores. By early 2026, the stock price had collapsed. The company had lost 99% of its value. It was a dead brand walking. Then, in mid-April of 2026, Allbirds made a shocking announcement. They told the world they were completely abandoning the shoe business. They sold off their shoe assets for pennies on the dollar. They changed their corporate name to Newbird AI, and they announced that they were pivoting to become a cloud provider that rents out AI graphics chips. Let that sink in. A company that spent the last decade knitting wool into sneakers suddenly declared that they were going to compete with the biggest technology monopolies in the world to build highly complex computer infrastructure. It is a completely unnatural, bizarre move. It is like a failing hot dog stand, suddenly announcing they are going to start building nuclear submarines. So, how did the stock market react to this obvious act of desperation? Did investors laugh them out of the room? No. The stock price exploded upward by over 500%. In a single day of trading, retail investors rushed in and bought millions of shares. Why does this happen? Why do smart, normal people throw their hard-earned money at a dying shoe company just because it whispered the letters AI? To understand this, we have to look at human psychology. There is a specific mental trap called the availability heuristic. The availability heuristic is a cognitive bias. It basically means that human brains are incredibly lazy. When we have to make a decision, we do not usually do deep, objective research. Instead, we rely on whatever information is easiest and quickest for our brain to remember. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine you are asked what is more dangerous, getting attacked by a shark or taking a selfie. Most people will instantly say the shark attack. Why? Because shark attacks are terrifying. They are on the news. They make big, bloody headlines. Your brain can easily recall the image of a shark. But statistically, far more people die every year by falling off cliffs or stepping into traffic while trying to take a selfie. But selfie deaths do not make the national news, so your brain ignores the real danger. This exact same brain glitch happens in investing. Right now, the media is pumping out thousands of stories every day about the artificial intelligence boom. You hear about teenagers making millions on new tech coins. You hear about tech stocks going to the moon. This information is everywhere. It is highly available to your brain. So when a regular person sees a headline, that a cheap stock is suddenly involved in AI, their brain takes a shortcut. The brain says AI equals instant wealth. I have seen it on the news all week. I must buy this stock right now before I miss out. They do not read the financial reports. They do not ask how a shoe company is going to build a data center. They just hit the buy button. This is confirmation bias working hand in hand with the availability heuristic. People want to believe they have found a secret ticket to getting rich quick. So they only look for information that confirms their hope, and they completely ignore the glaring red warning signs. If you study history, you know exactly how this story ends. It never ends well. This herd mentality, this frantic chasing of momentum, is exactly how catastrophic financial bubbles are formed. Let us take a trip back to the year 1720 in England. If you want to understand the madness of crowds, the South Sea bubble is the ultimate masterclass. The British government was in massive debt from fighting wars. A man named Robert Harley helped create the South Sea Company. The deal was simple but incredibly deceptive. The company would take over the national debt of the government. In exchange, the government gave the company a monopoly on trade with South America. The problem was Spain controlled South America, and they barely let the British trade there at all. The company had almost no real business. But the directors of the company were masters of marketing. They bribed politicians. They spread incredible rumors in the coffee houses of London about untold riches and gold mines. They created a massive hype machine. They allowed people to buy the stock with tiny down payments, letting them borrow the rest. The public went absolutely rabid. Maids, politicians, writers, and aristocrats all threw their money into the stock. The price went vertical, shooting from £100 to £1,000. In a matter of months, other fake companies popped up just to take advantage of the mania. There was literally a company that went public, whose stated business plan was for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, but nobody to know what it is. And people actually gave them money. When the illusion finally shattered, the financial devastation was so severe that it crippled the British economy for decades. People threw themselves into the river. The smartest scientist in the world at the time, Sir Isaac Newton, lost his entire life savings in the crash. He famously said that he could calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. We saw the exact same thing happen in the late 1990s during the dot-com bubble. Any company could add .com to their name and watch their stock soar. A company called Pets.com spent millions of dollars on a major television commercial featuring a sock puppet. They sold pet food online at a massive loss. Investors gave them hundreds of millions of dollars anyway. Within a year, the company was bankrupt and the stock was worthless. History unequivocally demonstrates that when a speculative frenzy lacks a foundation, in real earnings and sustainable business models, it will collapse. The Allbirds AI pivot is tapping into that exact same primal greedy instinct. The danger is not just that the people buying this fake AI will lose their money. The real danger is contagion. When thousands of these tiny, speculative bubbles pop at the same time, it destroys the confidence of the entire market. It creates panic, and panic can cause even good, strong companies to crash. While the retail crowd is busy gambling their savings on shoe companies, what are the true financial masters doing? They are doing the exact opposite. They are practicing contrarian behavior. A contrarian is someone who deliberately goes against the crowd. When everyone is greedy and buying, the contrarian is cautious. When everyone is terrified and selling, the contrarian is aggressively buying. One of the most famous contrarian investors alive today is Michael Burry. If you have seen the movie The Big Short, you know who he is. But to truly appreciate how Michael Burry thinks, you have to understand who he is as a person. He is not a traditional Wall Street banker in a fancy suit. He is actually a medical doctor. He studied medicine at Vanderbilt University and was working his residency in neurology. But his brain is wired differently. He has a profound ability to focus obsessively on complex data. He also has a glass eye, which he has said, makes it difficult for him to look people in the eye and read their social cues. This might seem like a disadvantage in life, but in the financial markets, it is a superpower. He is completely immune to the social pressure and the emotional panic of the herd. When everyone else is screaming and running for the exits, he is calmly reading a 500-page financial prospectus. He shuts out the noise of the world. That is why, in the mid-2000s, he was able to see the rot inside the American housing market, when nobody else could. Everyone else believed that house prices would go up forever. The banks were handing out mortgages to people who had no jobs and no income. It was pure animal spirits. Burry ignored the hype. He realized that the complex mortgage bonds were stuffed with loans that would never be repaid. He bet against the entire global financial system. Wall Street thought he was insane. His own investors tried to pull their money out of his fund, but he held his ground. When the housing market collapsed in 2008, Burry made billions of dollars. He is a master of ignoring market noise and focusing entirely on intrinsic value. So when a man with that specific psychological profile looks at a temporary dip in stocks in 2026 and decides to buy aggressively, you should pay very close attention. In April of 2026, Michael Burry made his next big move. He looked at the software sector. Earlier in the year, the stock prices of major, highly profitable software companies like Salesforce, Adobe, and Autodesk had dropped significantly. The broader market had indiscriminately punished these companies. Investors were terrified. They were worried about two things. First, they were scared that new AI startups would steal all the customers from the traditional software giants. Second, they were panicking about something called technical debt and private credit pressures. Let me translate those scary financial words into a simple, everyday analogy. Imagine you are looking at a beautiful, strongly built brick house in a great neighborhood. This house represents a massive software company like Salesforce. The house is sturdy. It has a great roof. The plumbing works perfectly. It generates a steady stream of rental income every month. But suddenly, the entire neighborhood experiences a temporary power outage. And at the same time, the local bank announces they are going to raise interest rates on new loans. The people standing outside the house panic. They say the power is out. The banks are strict. This house is worthless now. We have to sell it immediately. They panic and sell the beautiful brick house for half of its actual value. Michael Burry is the guy who walks up, looks at the house and says, "You people are crazy. The foundation is perfect. The rental income is still coming in. The power will come back on tomorrow. The interest rates are a temporary headache. I will gladly buy this house for a massive discount." This is called second-order thinking. First-order thinking is simple and reactive. First-order thinking says, software stocks are going down, so I should sell. Second-order thinking looks deeper. It asks, why are they going down? And is the reason permanent or temporary? Burry realized that the technical pressures from private credit issues were temporary. These software companies still have tens of thousands of corporate clients, paying them billions of dollars in recurring subscription revenue every single year. A large company cannot just unplug Salesforce and switch to a brand new artificial intelligence startup overnight. It takes years to migrate that kind of massive corporate data. Burry understands the difference between transient market noise and enduring intrinsic worth, so he bought the dip. He aggressively accumulated shares of Salesforce, Adobe, and other software giants at bargain prices, and he was right. Within days of his purchase, the software sector rebounded and those stocks surged. He made a massive profit simply by refusing to panic and relying on fundamental reality. This kind of sophisticated, calculated investing is not just happening in the United States. We are seeing incredibly nuanced dynamics playing out on a global scale. Let us look across the ocean to China. For the past few years, the Chinese technology sector has been a very painful place for investors. The Chinese government enacted strict regulatory crackdowns on their biggest tech companies. They wiped out billions of dollars in market value. The West largely wrote off Chinese tech as uninvestable, but the deep flow of capital tells a different story. Look at Alibaba. Alibaba is essentially the massive digital commerce engine of China. It is an absolute titan. Recently, Alibaba has been showing signs of a very powerful, carefully orchestrated recovery. How are they doing it? They are completely ignoring the retail hype and focusing entirely on strategic, heavy investments in real artificial intelligence and video cloud infrastructure. They are building the exact same kind of heavy foundational systems that the American data center companies are building. This is a critical lesson. It shows that even when broader, political relations between the East and the West are tense and complicated, domestic demand and targeted technological innovation can drive massive turnarounds. The Chinese middle class is still enormous. Their demand for digital services is staggering. By integrating true AI deeply into their logistics, their cloud computing, and their digital entertainment platforms, Alibaba is fortifying its core business. It is a perfect contrast to the Allbirds situation. Allbirds is a hollow shell, putting an AI sticker on its forehead to trick people. Alibaba is a massive economic engine, rebuilding its internal core with real technology to actually move faster and carry more weight. Institutional money recognizes this difference immediately, but we must be incredibly careful. Even if you understand the difference between fake hype and real infrastructure, there are hidden bombs buried in the financial system. We need to talk about systemic risk. Right now, the heat map of the market is flashing bright red warnings. Speculative tech is extremely risky. But there is a silent danger lurking in something called New Age ETF strategies. Let me explain what an ETF is. It stands for Exchange Traded Fund. Imagine you want to buy fruit. You could go to the store and try to pick the perfect apple, the perfect banana, and the perfect orange. That takes time and expertise. Or you could just buy a pre-packaged fruit basket that has a little bit of everything in it. An ETF is basically a financial fruit basket. Instead of buying one stock, you buy one share of an ETF, and it gives you a tiny piece of hundreds of different stocks. ETFs were originally designed to be safe, boring, and stable. But Wall Street is greedy. They are constantly inventing new, incredibly complex, high-speed fruit baskets. These New Age ETF strategies use complicated math, borrowed money, and computer algorithms to try and squeeze extra profit out of the market. When the market is calm and moving upward, these complex ETFs look like genius inventions. They print money, but sophisticated institutional players are looking at these new products with intense scrutiny. They know that these complex algorithms are incredibly vulnerable to extreme volatility. We must look closer at the history of automated market crashes. We have seen this movie before. In 1987, on a day known as Black Monday, the stock market crashed over 20% in a single day. Why did it happen? It was driven by a new financial invention called portfolio insurance. It was an early computer algorithm designed to automatically sell stocks if the market started going down, to protect the investors from losing too much money. But when everyone bought the same insurance and the market dipped slightly, all the computers started selling at exactly the same time. The selling drove the prices lower, which triggered more automatic selling. It was a blind mechanical slaughter. We saw it again in the flash crash of 2010, when high-frequency trading algorithms wiped out $1 trillion of value in 36 minutes. The modern New Age ETFs are infinitely more complex and interwoven than the algorithms of the past. They use massive leverage. If a shock hits the system, perhaps a sudden escalation in the Middle East, or a disastrous inflation report, the human beings will not be in control. The algorithms will take over. Let us go back to our ocean analogy. These complex ETFs are like massive, heavy fishing nets, dragging behind multiple boats. As long as the boats are moving at the same speed in the same direction, everything is fine. But what happens if the wind suddenly changes? What happens if panic hits the market and everyone tries to sell at the exact same second? The algorithms inside these ETFs will automatically trigger massive sell orders. They will dump billions of dollars of stock onto the market blindly. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. The ETF selling drives the market price down. The lower price triggers more panic, which forces the ETF to sell even more. The fishing nets get tangled together and start dragging the boats underwater. This is a systemic risk. It means the danger is built into the architecture of the financial plumbing itself. If the retail bubble in speculative tech pops, it could trigger violent volatility. That volatility could break the algorithms in these new ETFs, forcing a massive automatic fire sale across the entire stock market. Even the good, fundamentally sound companies could see their prices collapse temporarily in the crossfire. And finally, we have to keep an eye on how government policy acts as fuel for this fire. There is currently a massive political debate happening about implementing a no tax on tips policy for service workers. On the surface, this sounds like a very small, granular issue. It sounds like a nice way to help waiters and bartenders keep more of their hard-earned money. But in macroeconomics, you have to look at the massive aggregate effect. Let us dive deeper into the mechanics of inflation and consumer spending. There are millions of service workers in the economy. If you suddenly stop taxing their tips, you are instantly putting billions of dollars of fresh, spendable cash directly into the pockets of everyday consumers. This is known as a micro-stimulus. What do people do when their paycheck suddenly gets bigger? They spend it. When lower and middle income workers receive unexpected extra income, their propensity to consume is incredibly high. Unlike a billionaire who will just put extra money into a savings account, a bartender who suddenly takes home an extra $200 a week is going to spend almost all of it immediately. This money goes straight into the velocity of money. It bounces from the bartender to the grocery store, to the clothing retailer, to the gas station. It circulates rapidly. This is pure, unadulterated economic fuel. But the engine of the global economy is currently sputtering. Supply chains are still adapting and trying to recover. If you pour a massive bucket of high-octane fuel into an engine that is already running hot and struggling to breathe, you do not get more speed. You get an explosion. You get inflation. If millions of people suddenly start trying to buy more stuff, but the factories and shipping lanes cannot keep up, prices go up. This micro-stimulus, while fantastic for the individual worker, carries a very real threat of reigniting inflation. And if inflation spikes again, the central banks will have to raise interest rates. High interest rates are the absolute kryptonite for stock market bubbles. The speculative retail boats, those tiny wooden rowboats we talked about earlier, only float because money is cheap and easy to borrow. If interest rates stay high, the cost of borrowing crushes them. The neon banners will turn off, and the boats will sink. We are standing on the edge of a massive historical divide. On one side, we have the most profound technological infrastructure, built out in human history, anchored by real companies building the physical future of our world. On the other side, we have a terrifying circus of retail speculation, driven by psychological biases and historical ignorance, where failing shoe companies can become billion-dollar phenomenons overnight. The smart money is moving with cold, calculated precision. They are ignoring the noise, buying the unwarranted dips in vital software, and watching carefully for the hidden traps in complex financial products. The unaware are blindly chasing the neon signs right over the edge of the cliff. You have to ask yourself, which boat are you on? Are you navigating by the fundamentals, or are you being blown around by the wind of the crowd?